So good. I knew that was a punchline and you still gave me the chills.
Yeah.
That is, that's a real thing, man.
Yeah.
And I do
So
think about that, the sort of optimal, like what's that optimal level of friction? And there was a really fascinating time in my life in building impact theory where I needed to get good at Japanese style storytelling, so manga and anime. And I was reading manga like a fiend and watching as much anime as I could. I was getting up super early and working out and then watching like an hour, hour and a half of anime. It was awesome. It's one of the most fun times I've had as an adult. The second I felt like I understood the art form, I couldn't
Yeah, you
let
let go.
myself do it anymore. Like I couldn't enjoy it. I was just like, you already understand it. Now you're just doing it to like pass time doing something that's enjoyable. And it had that same feeling of like winning all the time where I'm like, this isn't interesting. It needed to be moving towards something. It
as
needed to add up to something. And
humans
this,
like progress.
yeah, like
Yeah.
this is the very reason that Lisa and I did not buy an island and retire and not engage. It's like I knew I would end up sitting on
I
that
can tell you
beautiful
other
beach.
reasons not to buy an island, by the way.
I bet you can.
I mean, look, life is about growth, right? And even if we have plentiful, and today relatively we have plentiful. Go back 1,000 years, we were all spending 28 hours a day in the fields just to put three meals on the table, right? We've steadily shrunk the amount of time. As we move towards probably some structure like a UBI, we then have an equal opportunity to do lots of interesting things. When we've studied abundance, say the Romans taking over and creating the Roman Empire, or the Mughals taking over India and encountering abundance, society very clearly goes to four things that they do: food, art, music, and sex. Not in that order. And so
Pretty good
that's
list.
essentially where you will end up, and you end up looking at self-expression and the artistic realm much more than you did before, whether in whatever realm you choose. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And by the way, we've done this for thousands of years, right? Buddhists sit in contemplation, they reach enlightenment, and their life is spent contemplating, and that's where they get the most joy. And this is something that I think we'll get to as a species.
I'd like to bring it back to the following. One of the reasons we wrote this book is to help entrepreneurs and businesses understand that they can make a much bigger dent in the universe than ever before. And while it's not about making money, it's about how do you build a significant company that is transforming the planet and is making the world a better place. And what we're finding is that there are a number of ways that companies do this reliably with the biggest dent, and so we want to get that information out there. And the reality is, if you're building a company today, you need to start with this as your playbook in order to succeed, because it's table stakes. And if you're running a large-scale company, if you don't use these attributes, if you're not using these, you are not going to survive the rest of this decade. You know, what I say is there are two kinds of companies by the end of this decade. You know, those that are fully utilizing AI and these exponential technologies, and those that are out of business. That's it. It's this decade where all of this is happening. And so, you know, we talk about the first step in building an EXO is having a massive transformative purpose. And it's going to be that passion-driven need to make a difference in the world that's going to carry you through. Doing anything big and bold in the world is hard, unless you're driven by awe on one side of the emotional curve or pain on the other side of the emotional curve. You're going to give up before you get there.
No doubt. Yeah. When I'm teaching entrepreneurs, I always tell them that success is a game of attrition. Most people give up, and you've got to stick it out long enough to figure this out. So that would be the old paradigm is that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, in looking at what you're doing and what you've been building in impact theory, you do use a lot of the 10 attributes that follow an MTP, and it'll be fun to actually see which ones you're cranking on.
Yeah, no, MTP is definitely our lead engine. We know what we're doing and we know why we're doing it. And that's a big part of the way that we attract talent, which you guys have talked a lot about. But tying it to this idea of Buddhism, so there obviously all of us get to make a choice every day effectively as to whether we recognize that all of suffering comes from attachment and desire, and thusly we go live a monastic life and we remove ourselves completely from that stream, or we say, I'm going to do deep engagement in a way that's thoughtful, in a way where I'm not sort of blindly chasing something. It's not want, it's not greed, but it is very much leveraging the human desire for progress. You talked about that earlier. To see how much I can do with my life. That's something that really drives me, is I just want to see. I feel like I was given sort of an average hand at cards. I want to see how well I can play it.
Yes.
Right.
And that's extremely intoxicating for me. It's just like, whoa.
But